Hello, everyone. My name is Mike, and today is the day that I am quitting weed. And the reason that I'm making this video and plan on making this video series is to stay accountable. Um, from what I understand about weed, and I particularly feel like I'm addicted to weed. Uh, One of the best strategies is to shine a light on it. So I think not even the fact that I smoke weed, but the fact that I'm addicted to weed, it's something that I hide. Like I don't really talk about, I don't really tell people. Um, like I'm afraid of being judged in some way, even though like a lot of people smoke it and most people accept it, and I feel a shame around it, so I don't really share about it. It's like I feel embarrassed. And I realize that's just something that's kind of in my own head. Um, it's not something that I want to just like share publicly with like everyone I know, but at the same time, like I really keep it to myself because it's something that I'm embarrassed by. And from what I understand, um, when you're hiding something, like hiding something in the shadows, that's where addiction can thrive. So that's one reason I'm making these videos is to kind of, stay accountable, but really that is kind of to shine a light about it so I could talk out loud about it, but share it to other people, which is difficult because um I'm ready to quit at this point. There is, my body is still addicted to it. So I've been saying for the last couple of years, I want to quit, but I want to stay smoking more than I want to quit. I feel like the things are tipping over at this point. I've been trying to quit smoking weed for 15 years or something like that. Well, like I realize it's not healthy and I kind of value health, so I have a very conflicting viewpoint and I have a lot of inner conflict when it comes to weed because I don't know, there's maybe I like it the way it makes me feel or there's something there. There's obviously I have some sort of emotional payoff um that I really have a hard time just letting it go. So like I'll say I'm quitting today, I'll set a quit date. And so that's one reason this is difficult because I don't know, I've made a video before and then just went back on it. So that's also embarrassing, like just to think that I'm making this video and then I'm gonna relapse tomorrow anyway, and then the next day. I feel confident that making this video that like I'll really stick with it because I've made the decision. But it's gonna be difficult based on history because you know, I felt like, hey, I'm going to do it this time many times, but then the next day I'm back smoking again. And so I'm taking steps now. This is like step one, like one thing I started sharing it with a friend of mine and trying to stay accountable with this goal of quitting weed. And two, I'm posting this on YouTube for other people to see. And I posted videos before. I like made day three like 3 years ago and posted on this channel. And then people were responding and kind of relating to it. So another I guess reason why I want to do this, and I think that will be more motivating, is that by sharing this out loud, um, I tend to like helping other people. So if I'm able to share kind of my process and, um, you know, I feel like people generally are more inspired by people who are walking the path and doing it. I think you'd get value if I was struggling too, but if I actually follow through, even though it's super difficult, I feel like other people could look at that and it could help them in some way. At least inspire one or two people that are struggling right now to also kind of get through this process. Um, let's talk about the reason why real quick. The reason why I want to quit, there's many reasons, but I want to talk about the reason why I do smoke weed. because I think that's a more important question to think about right now. I have all the reasons to quit smoking weed, but it's like figuring out why I smoke weed in the first place because I'll list the big, I value health. I could see how it's having a negative impact on that. I mean, I'm putting smoke into my lungs. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that that's not a healthy thing. I am a registered nurse, and I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to nutritional science and health and all of that. And I do a ton of research, and it's kind of like I have a big values conflict because I'm doing this. It's like I feel like I'm doing this thing to myself that's harming me, and I'm watching myself do it. I'm like, what? Why do I repeatedly just walk into the wall every single day? That's what I feel like. I feel like I know this is wrong for me, so just stop. Like, just kind of like just muscle through it, go through the period, wait so it kind of get through the tough part. It will get out of your system. You'll get used to it. Logically, it makes sense why like that I can do it. Other people have done it. Um, you know, um, but every day I kind of find myself back to it. And so that kind of stimulates the question, why am I doing it in the first place? So there's some sort of like emotional payoff there. Um, I think that's something that I'll kind of like figure out through these videos as well and explore. Um, so yeah, that's one reason why I value health. I have goals of basically taking care of my 80-year-old self, if that makes sense. So some people might say, you don't even know if you're going to live till 80, but let's assume that you might. So it's kind of like thinking, well, if I make it to the age 80, and I hope I do, um, what will that look like? And if I am doing the things in my life right now and continuing with that trend, then, my lungs aren't going to do well. Like it's not going to be easier to stop later on. I've realized that because I've been trying to quit for so long. Like I thought things would be easier, like my older self would figure it out. And I have figured out a lot of things that like I'm 37 now, my 20-year-old version didn't know. And I was like, you know what, I'll figure it out someday. But for this one, I keep saying maybe later. I'm gonna stop, and it's not getting easier. So I gotta just do it at some point. And so that's why I'm doing this. Um, Let me think. The other reason is I'm a father now, and I have a 4-month-old baby. So I want to be as healthy as possible and be present, be a good example. Um, if I go through this, I won't only just like get rid of something damaging me, but it will require me to go through something challenging. If I go through something challenging, then I'll grow through that experience, and through that growth, that's like a model or example that will be helpful for raising my son. So there's that. So there's that kind of value into quitting. And then just getting rid of it, like on the negative side, like I'll be avoiding um, you know, like of more clarity and mental focus, so less scatterbrainness. Um, the thing is that right now I think things are going pretty good in my life, except for smoking weed. Like, I do struggle a little bit with consistency with exercise and like staying away from sugary treats and stuff like that. But for the past week, I've been kind of nailing that. And I set up some accountability partners, and I feel pretty good about that right now. Um, But the weed thing, it's like even if I tell people, it's like that's why I really want to quit too. It's like that's the one thing in my life that I feel most out of control with. Because I feel like that's the one last thing. If that was kind of like out of my life, things would be going pretty good. Like I think it's going pretty good right now, except the fact that when I smoke weed, it's a really annoying because I'm like fighting with myself. I'm like, oh, time to stop. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll smoke a little bit more and maybe I'll quit later. And tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. All of that stuff. And it's kind of a pain in the ass. So other than that, like things are going pretty good. Like I have this like little inner conflict and then I just kind of deal with it. I'm like, I guess I'll live my life being kind of high. I kind of just it I feel normal at this point. Like I could function pretty well. I used to have a I get used to get really anxious and paranoid when I was drinking a lot more coffee and mixing that with smoking weed and just smoking whatever weed. So indica. So I'd be smoking that and I'd still be addicted to it, but also being super anxious and paranoid and all of that stuff. But sativa, I doesn't really do that to me. So, um, things, most things in my life are functioning pretty well. What I'm looking at is the big long-term picture. What is the impact of me continuing to do this? And honestly, like I am functioning, I am doing pretty well in my life in most areas, except for the smoking weed thing, honestly. And I'm sure there's like some other things, but that's just kind of like the big glaring issue right now in my life. Um, you know, I've heard in a someone who talks about addiction say, your life might be doing pretty well, but it's doing that despite smoking weed. So smoking weed still makes me really scatterbrained. It slows me down. It makes me procrastinate. I'm more likely to just do stuff like that's sitting around watching stuff like endlessly or just not being able to focus and stuff like that. So things are going pretty decent. Like I'm kind of missing out on what I'd be capable of without all of this stuff going on in my life, sort of thing. So it's not something that's like destroying my life right now, but it's just like slowly eating away at my health, like all that stuff. That is not cool. I gotta kind of deal with that. Um, So I kind of talked about throwing weed. So right now, I'm going to do that. Just a second. Right now, I have in front of me a weed grinder. And here's another thing. I've done this many times. I've thrown out my weed, like $30 worth of weed. One time I bought $65 of weed and threw it out and then bought it the same day, probably. Like flushed it down the toilet so I couldn't even, you know, think about it even just being in the trash or something like that. Um, it's really convenient for me to get it where I'm at. Um, like down the street, there's drive-throughs where you could just take your car, give them like swipe your debit card, and they give you a bag of weed or some joints or something like that. Really easy. And they're also very friendly there. So it's like a positive experience all around. But uh, you know, um, however, it being in the house right now is still probably going to be a lot more difficult with it just sitting around in my house. So I'm going to take that step and get rid of it right now. First off, I might as well just rip off the band-aid and flush the weed. It's a sad day. I mean, it's not a sad day. Like, it's a good day. Ah, see, there it is. My body just felt sad, like, it's over. So it's like kind of like it's my body just feels like I'm missing out on this thing. And that's something I gotta challenge. That's why I'm like, I gotta think through this and catch that. Because this is good, but it's scary. So this is just a fear thing, but that doesn't mean it's a sad day. It's a good day. part of me obviously like emotionally is bummed out or afraid. I think it's more fear, but it kind of masks itself. It's like, oh, I'm missing out or whatever. No, this is a good thing. Okay, I'm gonna flush this in the toilet now. All right, so that's flushed. And now I'm going to take the grinder and I'm gonna chuck that out right now. All right, grinders in the toilet. Or no, that would be crazy if I flushed a grinder down the toilet. I meant I threw it in the garbage. Um, Now I got this pipe here that I use to smoke. I'm going to get rid of that now. And I'm even going to go so far to make sure I don't even want to use it because there's some little resin in there and there's residue around. I just want to get rid of all of that right now. So I'm just going to dip the tip of this pipe into the toilet so I don't even want to use it. All right, so I dipped the tip of that uh, pipe in the toilet and then I threw in the trash. Okay. Yeah, so I'm noticing in my body right now, I feel a little bit anxious about me doing that. That's, that's part of it. That's kind of to be expected. All right, so, okay. Strategy. I'm going to keep making these videos and tell you how I am doing with day one, day two, day three, and all of that stuff. I also have a couple of apps on my phone right now. And by the way, I really try to avoid having many apps on my phone at all. Um, I try to avoid using the internet, like internet apps as in browsers and things like that. I don't have YouTube. I used to all the time, and that's pretty much why I don't have it anymore because I realized it was such a problem. But social media, I try not even to have like email on my phone and stuff like that. Um, because it could get sucked in and I have an online business and I'd be checking to see if I got any emails all of the time, like when I first woke up, and that's not really good. And then just games, I tried not to have that on my phone too much because I'd get sucked into that. YouTube, I get, oh man, that's like a YouTube on my phone in the morning just kind of killed my productivity because I love doing it. I still use YouTube a lot, but just trying to keep my phone like out of that as much as possible. Like kind of so I try to keep it very useful, the things that I have as apps on my phone right now. And I use this app called Minimalist Phone. So it kind of just creates a list of apps rather than the shiny buttons. I find that's helpful. Anyway, the apps that I'm going to be using are two of them, and I'm going to use both of them because they both have their benefits from what I've seen. They're basically just tracking apps. So one's called Grounded, and one of them's just called Quit Weed. And you hit basically reset. It's like a timer, but in the timer, one of them it shows kind of like what's going on in your body as things are going on. Um, and it also kind of gamifies it, kind of gives you an incentive. It gives you like little rewards and things like that. And I like playing video games. And so I know that's something that's motivating, that kind of like keeps me going a little bit, being able to kind of see progress as I go, like represented outwards will really help me. I think that's like they're just saying I'm going to quit, like this feeling of like, oh, this is going to be forever. Having like little anchor points and kind of, being able to see that progress, I think will really help. It like it's not just the timer or, tracking how many days or whatever. That doesn't really work for me, but these apps kind of have these built-in, like one of them really kind of describes, hey, it one of them will be counting down for 30 days and will be saying, hey, at this point, you have 50% of THC metabolites in your body, or the first one is talks about your REM sleep will increase, so you'll have more vivid dreams, and it will have a percentage of how long that withdrawal symptom might last. And then we'll also talk about like, hey, at this point, your prefrontal cortex will be and your memories will be a lot better and kind of restored at this point, because that's another thing. Weed impacts your memory. And, I don't, it's probably impacting me more than I realize. And it, again, like my life is good enough, but I don't want to just like kind of settle. I want to not put crap in my body, basically. The smoke is one thing, but I just want to like get rid of the whole THC dependence. That's how I kind of feel it. Anyway, that's pretty much my thoughts for day zero. Um, yeah, thank you for listening. Okay, bye.